Chapter 30. Isabella supposed she shouldn't have been surprised that the sanctuary they were going to involved more tunnels. Her legs shook with fatigue as she followed Mikhail through a narrow maintenance passage that smelled of mildew and forgotten things. The rough concrete wall scraped her shoulders when she failed to navigate the tight corners. She noted that the tunnel appeared deliberately maintained despite its age, clear evidence of long-term planning by the pack. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness, each splash echoing with hollow persistence. The air hung heavy with dampness, coating her skin with a clammy film that made her shiver despite the exertion of their journey. The passage felt centuries old, the stone beneath her fingertips worn smooth by countless hands before hers. "How much farther?" she whispered, her voice carrying farther than intended in the enclosed space. She winced, instinctively glancing behind them, old habits of caution now heightened by very real threats. Mikhail paused, turning back to her. Even in the dim light, his eyes gleamed with that internal luminescence. His posture remained alert, but unhurried, a predator confident in his territory. The shadows accentuated the sharp angles of his face, making him appear more otherworldly than human. "Just ahead," he answered, his voice pitched low enough that only she could hear it. "Are you all right?" His concern was genuine, but she noticed how he simultaneously scanned their surroundings, never letting his guard down even for her. "I'm fine." The lie came automatically. Her body ached from the escape, her mind reeling from the events of the past 24 hours. He studied her face for a moment longer than necessary, his nostrils flaring slightly, scenting her exhaustion and anxiety, she realized. Yet he chose not to call her on the falsehood. This was another part of their developing understanding, respecting when the other needed their pride. "The sanctuary is just beyond this section," he said, his voice gentling. "You'll be able to rest soon." They continued in silence, the passage gradually widening until they reached what appeared to be a bricked-over doorway. Mikhail pressed his palm against a seemingly random brick, his movements precise and practiced, and Isabella heard the soft click of hidden mechanisms engaging. The wall swung inward, revealing a wash of warm amber light. Isabella stepped through the doorway and froze, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten as her analytical mind struggled to process the unexpected scene. They stood on a platform overlooking what had once been a subway station, abandoned during construction decades ago. But where there should have been emptiness and decay, there was life. Vibrant, organized, impossible life. The vaulted ceiling rose at least 30 feet above the platform floor, strung with hundreds of twinkling lights that mimicked stars against a backdrop of midnight blue paint. The air here was remarkably different, warmer, cleaner, infused with a complex mixture of scents. Burning cedar, fresh bread, the subtle musk she'd come to associate with werewolves, and something like fresh earth after rain. Sound carried differently, too. The acoustics of the vast underground space created a gentle ambient hum from dozens of conversations happening below. The platform itself had been transformed into a communal living space, with mismatched but comfortable-looking furniture arranged in conversation circles. Rich tapestries hung against the rough walls, depicting what appeared to be scenes from pack history in vibrant colors that somehow made the underground space feel less confined. The tracks below had been covered with wooden flooring, creating a lower level that branched off into what appeared to be private rooms built into the tunnel walls. The wood creaked pleasantly underfoot, worn to a golden patina by years of use. People, werewolves, Isabella corrected herself mentally, moved about with purpose. Some carried supplies, others huddled over maps and computers, while some tended to the wounded from the siege at Mikhail's building. Her legal mind noted the efficiency of their organization, the clear chain of command evident in how they deferred to certain individuals, and the sophisticated level of infrastructure that spoke to decades of development. "Welcome to the Warren," Mikhail said quietly, his hand resting at the small of her back, a protective and possessive gesture. "One of the oldest sanctuaries in the Atlanta network." "This is incredible," Isabella breathed, trying to take in everything. "How long has this been here?" "Since the 1920s. Pride colored his voice, the tone of a leader discussing his people's achievements. The original Pack Alpha purchased the land above and bribed officials to abandon the subway expansion. Every generation has expanded and improved it. His voice softened, revealing a personal connection. "This was my first project as Alpha, modernizing this space without losing the history." A familiar figure broke away from a group and approached them, moving with a slight limp, but otherwise appearing recovered. Isabella recognized the fluid, predatory grace even in the wounded movement, an unconscious, physical language all the werewolves seemed to share. "Katerina!" Isabella exclaimed, genuinely pleased to see the female werewolf on her feet after taking a silver bullet at the penthouse. "You're all right." Her tone carried more warmth than she'd intended to reveal, a sign of how quickly she'd come to respect Mikhail's second-in-command. Katerina's usual stoicism softened slightly, though her posture remained military straight despite her injury. "Thanks to you," she acknowledged, her voice carrying the slight Eastern European accent that emerged when her emotions were engaged. Her eyes, a striking green that seemed more pronounced underground, assessed Isabella from head to toe in one swift, evaluative glance. "Your distraction gave the Pack enough time to extract all the wounded, though you returning to the humans was reckless." "It was necessary," Isabella countered, straightening her spine despite her fatigue. She met the Lycan's gaze directly, refusing to be scolded. Katerina's mouth twitched in what might have been the ghost of a smile before her expression turned serious again. "The latest reports from our contacts in law enforcement say they're calling it a flight, to avoid prosecution. Your face is all over the news." She delivered this with the clipped precision of a military briefing, no wasted words. Isabella sighed, running a hand through her tangled hair. The sensation of grit and oil against her fingertips made her long desperately for a shower. "I expected as much." Her mind was already analyzing likely repercussions. The charges would be escalating, from murder suspect to escaped prisoner, possibly with added conspiracy charges. The evidence they'd need to overcome such accusations would have to be overwhelming. "Come," Mikhail said, guiding her toward a spiral staircase that led down to the lower level. His hand remained at the small of her back, a tangible reminder of his presence. "You should meet the rest of the community. Many have been eager to meet the human who ran toward a Lycan battle rather than away from it." As they descended, Isabella became aware of curious glances from all directions. Some gazes were friendly, others wary, but none were hostile. A marked improvement from her first interactions with Katerina and the Pack. She found herself unconsciously adjusting her posture. The metal staircase rang softly under their feet, the sound mingling with the ambient noise of the warren. A child, no more than 7 or 8, darted between adults and stopped directly in their path, staring up at Isabella with unabashed curiosity. Her wild curls were barely contained in 2 puffball pigtails, and she wore overalls covered in what appeared to be painted handprints. The child's scent reached Isabella, a sweet, clean smell like sunshine and fresh laundry. "Are you really a human?" the girl asked, her head tilted to one side, sniffing the air with undisguised interest. A smudge of blue paint decorated one cheek, and her small teeth included slightly more prominent canines than a human child's would. Isabella crouched to the child's eye level, wincing slightly as her body protested the movement. The gesture came naturally. She'd always made a point of speaking to child witnesses at their height, a technique that built trust. The concrete floor felt cool even through her pants, a pleasant contrast to her overheated skin. "I am. My name is Isabella. What's yours?" "Amy," the child replied, bouncing slightly on her toes with the contained energy unique to children. She leaned forward and loudly whispered, "You smell nice. Not like Pack, but nice." Her small nose wrinkled as she continued her assessment. "Like books, and coffee, and outside." A laugh bubbled up from Isabella's chest, surprising her after so much tension. "Thank you, Amy. That's very kind." She found herself charmed by the child's directness, a refreshing change from the complicated adult dynamics she'd been navigating. "Amy," a woman called, hurrying over with a mixture of embarrassment and resignation. "What have I told you about bothering new arrivals?" She gave Isabella an apologetic look. "I'm sorry. She's still learning Pack etiquette." "It's fine," Isabella assured her, straightening with a slight wince she tried to hide. Her muscles screamed in protest, the adrenaline that had carried her through the escape finally dissipating completely. "No bother at all." The woman studied her with open curiosity, none of the wariness Isabella had come to expect from Mikhail's Pack members. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical braid, and she wore a paint-spattered smock over jeans. "I'm Elena. We've heard a lot about you." Her tone carried a hint of something like amusement mixed with respect. "All terrifying, I'm sure," Isabella said dryly, employing the self-deprecating humor she'd often used to disarm tense situations in legal negotiations. Elena's laugh was warm, genuine, with none of Katerina's reserve. The sound echoed pleasantly against the vaulted ceiling. Quite the opposite. The Pack hasn't seen Mikhail this animated in years. Her eyes flicked meaningfully between them, and Isabella felt heat rise to her cheeks. The implication was clear and surprisingly public, given that Isabella had assumed it was a private connection. Pack dynamics included less privacy than she was accustomed to. Mikhail cleared his throat, a surprisingly human gesture of mild embarrassment from the usually composed alpha. "Elena runs our education program for the Cubs, among other things." "Education program?" Isabella asked, intrigued by this glimpse into Lycan society. The revelation of such structured social systems fascinated her legal mind. An entire parallel society with its own infrastructure existing beneath human awareness. "Lycan children need specialized training," Eleanor explained, her voice taking on a teacher's practice cadence. "Control of shifting, Pack history, and navigating the human world without detection. Plus, All the usual subjects. She gestured toward a corner of the sanctuary where several children of various ages appeared to be engaged in lessons. Books and tablets were visible. The corner had been arranged with colorful rugs and cushions, creating a cozy learning space. Small drawings and maps adorned the walls, reminding Isabella of elementary school classrooms. "We have our own society," Mikhail added, his voice carrying that subtle note of pride again. "But we live alongside humans. Our children need to be prepared for both worlds." As they continued through the sanctuary, Isabella was introduced to more pack members. There was Darius, a massive man with a gentle demeanor who managed security, his movements precise despite his size. Sophia, a sharp-eyed woman with a tech specialist's rapid-fire speech patterns who coordinated intelligence gathering. And Florian, a medic treating those wounded in the siege, his hands moving with confident efficiency. Dozens of others were introduced, their names and roles blurring together as fatigue began to reclaim her. Isabella catalogued details automatically: defensive positions, communication systems, and the complex social hierarchy evident in how pack members interacted. She couldn't help but analyze it all, identifying strengths and vulnerabilities out of habit. They eventually reached a quieter section where the converted train tunnel branched into private quarters. Mikhail led her to a door marked with a stylized wolf's head. His personal symbol, she realized. She noticed similar markings throughout the sanctuary, though none quite identical to this one. The door was old, heavy wood with iron fittings that looked salvaged from some ancient building. "You can rest here," he said, opening the door to reveal a surprisingly comfortable living space carved from the tunnel. Bookshelves lined one wall with volumes ranging from ancient leather-bound tomes to modern paperbacks. A bed with rich burgundy coverings dominated the center, and someone had placed a vase of fresh wildflowers on a small writing desk. An unexpected touch of beauty in the underground space. The scent of the flowers mingled with the sandalwood and cedar. A small lamp cast a warm, golden glow over it all, making the space feel remarkably cozy despite being deep underground. "Your quarters?" she asked, stepping inside. She immediately noted the masculine touches: minimalist but high-quality furnishings, practical storage, and the slight scent of sandalwood that she'd come to associate with Mikhail. The floor was covered with overlapping rugs in deep reds and blues, worn to softness by years of use. A small fireplace had been built into one wall, currently unlit, but ready with stacked kindling and logs. "Ours, if you wish it," he offered, voice dropping to that intimate register that seemed reserved for her alone. The statement was provided simply, without pressure. But Isabella didn't miss the significance. An alpha offering to share his personal space was meaningful in pack terms. Isabella turned to face him, studying the face that had become more precious to her than she'd ever thought possible. Those intense eyes that now revealed emotion to her, where once she'd seen only danger. The strong line of his jaw was set with determination, even in moments of tenderness. Despite everything, the threat, the upheaval of her entire life, the loss of her career, she felt a certainty that defied the logical, analytical part of her nature. "I wish it," she said quietly, the simple words carrying more weight than elaborate declarations. Relief softened his features as he stepped toward her, hands resting at her waist. The subtle tension she hadn't even realized he'd been carrying eased from his shoulders. "We'll find a way through this, Isabella. Clear your name. Expose the corruption." His thumbs traced small circles against her sides, grounding her in the present moment. The touch sent warmth spreading through her despite her exhaustion. She leaned her forehead against his chest, allowing herself a moment of vulnerability she would show to no one else. His heartbeat was steady beneath her ear, slightly slower than a human's. Another reminder of his nature. His solid warmth eased some of the bone-deep chill that had settled in her since the escape. His scent enveloped her, that distinctive blend of sandalwood, cedar, and something wild that defied description but had become synonymous with safety. "I know, but right now I just need—" A sharp knock interrupted her. 3 rapid taps with a distinctive rhythm, a code of some kind. Mikhail reluctantly pulled away and opened the door to reveal a tense-looking Darius. The security chief's posture was alert, but controlled, his expression giving away nothing to casual observation. But Isabella noticed the slight tension around his eyes. His massive frame nearly filled the doorway, somehow appearing imposing while maintaining a respectful posture toward his alpha. "Forgive the intrusion, Alpha," the security chief said, his deep voice pitched low enough that it wouldn't carry beyond their immediate vicinity. "But we have a situation at the north entrance. A human seeking asylum says he has information crucial to our safety and Mrs. Santos's case." Isabella straightened, fatigue forgotten, her mind immediately shifting into lawyer mode. "Who?" Her voice took on the sharp intensity she'd used when receiving crucial evidence during trials. "Detective James Harper," Darius replied, his expression carefully neutral. "He's wounded and bleeding badly. Silver burn marks." Isabella's heart lurched, her breath catching audibly. "Harper's alive? How in the world did he find us here?" She moved toward the door, but Mikhail grabbed her arm, his grip gentle but immovable. The heat of his hand seared through her sleeve, a physical anchor against the shock. "It could be a trap," he warned, his voice taking on that deeper timbre she'd learned. Indicated his protective instincts were engaged. His stance shifted subtly, placing himself between her and the potential threat. "Or it could be our best chance at clearing my name and exposing the corruption," she countered, meeting his gaze directly. Her words emerged with the precise, measured tone she'd used to persuade reluctant judges. "Harper was investigating the murders before I was. If he's been framed too, he might have evidence we need. And he's my friend." Mikhail studied her for a long moment, weighing her words against his protective instincts. She could almost see the internal struggle, the alpha wolf wanting to shield her from all danger, battling with the respect he held for her judgment. Finally, he nodded. Decision made. "Darius, secure the detective and bring him to the medical station. Full precautions." As Darius departed with a curt nod, Mikhail turned to Isabella. "Rest can wait, it seems." His voice had a hint of wry resignation, but his eyes remained alert and focused. "It usually does," she replied with a small, tired smile. She followed Mikhail back into the heart of the sanctuary, her mind already racing with possibilities. Harper being alive changed everything. If they could trust him. The medical bay was a flurry of activity when they arrived. Florian and 2 assistants worked over a bloodied figure on an examination table, their movements quick and efficient. The scent of blood hung thick in the air, metallic and sharp, mingling with the acrid odor of antiseptic, and the more disturbing smell of burned flesh, the distinctive signature of silver wounds on human skin. Instruments clinked against metal trays, and the rapid beeping of monitoring equipment created an urgent backdrop to the hushed, intense voices of the medical team. Isabella pushed forward, needing to confirm with her own eyes that it was indeed Harper. The harsh fluorescent light over the treatment area cast everything in unforgiving clarity, making the scene all the more gruesome. Harper looked terrible. His face was gaunt and grey with pain, his usually clean-cut appearance replaced by torn clothing and several days' worth of stubble. A nasty wound ran along his left side, the edges blackened in the distinctive pattern of silver poisoning that Isabella had come to recognize from treating Mikhail's injuries. Her stomach clenched at the sight. Silver wounds were excruciating even for werewolves, and Harper was fully human. His skin had the waxy pallor of someone who had lost too much blood, and his breathing came in shallow, uneven gasps. "James," Isabella said, moving to where he could see her, positioning herself deliberately in his line of sight. Her voice carried the calm authority she'd used with traumatized witnesses, steady and reassuring despite her internal shock. She had to fight the instinct to recoil from the smell of infected wounds and unwashed body. His eyes, clouded with pain, struggled to focus on her face. Recognition sparked, followed by visible relief. "Santos." His voice was a ragged whisper, but it carried his typical direct manner, despite his condition. "Thank God." His hand twitched toward her. An aborted reaching gesture. "They said you were in custody." "Recently uninvited myself from that party," she replied, attempting lightness. Falling back on the gallows humor they'd shared during complex cases. She instinctively reached to check his pulse, the motion halted by Florian's expert interventions. "What happened to you?" "Everyone thought you were dead." She kept her voice low and steady, conscious of not adding to the medical team's distractions. Florian shot her a warning look, protective of his patient. His hands never stopped working as he spoke, deftly cleaning the blackened edges of the wound. Questions later. "He's lost a lot of blood." His voice held the no-nonsense authority of medical professionals everywhere, clearly used to being obeyed even by alphas. Harper grabbed her wrist with surprising strength, his fingers leaving smears of fresh blood on her skin. The unexpected warmth startled her. Somehow, she'd expected his touch to be as cold as he looked. His eyes, though pain-hazed, were suddenly focused with desperate urgency. "Can't wait. They will be coming for all of us. Got evidence. In my jacket." His eyes darted to a blood-stained jacket that had been cut away from his torso and discarded on a nearby chair. Isabella retrieved it immediately, methodically searching the pockets, using the exact, careful handling she'd given crucial evidence. The fabric was stiff with dried blood, crusty beneath her fingers, and stank of sweat and cigarettes. Her fingers found a hard object in the inner pocket and extracted a thumb drive sealed in a plastic bag. "This!" Harper nodded weakly, his breath coming in shallow gasps. "Everything. The whole conspiracy. Mayor. DA. Cover-up going back years." His eyes began to flutter, strength visibly ebbing. The heart monitor beside him beeped more rapidly, reflecting his agitation. "Save your strength," she urged, clutching the drive tightly, recognizing its potential value. Her voice softened with genuine concern. We'll talk when you're stronger. Trust nobody, Harper whispered, his detective's paranoia evident even in his weakened state. Florian administered an injection that caused the detective's eyes to close completely, his features relaxing into drug-induced unconsciousness. The sudden silence as Harper stopped speaking seemed to amplify the mechanical sounds of the monitoring equipment. The steady drip of IV fluids and the hushed voices of the medical team. Isabella backed away from the table, giving the medical team space to work, absently wiping her bloodied fingers on her pants. The sticky warmth of it made her stomach turn, a visceral reminder of how close Harper had come to death. Mikhail appeared at her side, eyes fixed on the thumb drive in her hand. That could be the key to everything, he said quietly, his gaze calculating, strategic. In the harsh medical lighting, his eyes looked more amber than blue. His wolf was nearer the surface in moments of tension. Or another trap, she replied, echoing his earlier caution. She was already considering angles, motives, and the possibility of falsified evidence. The small device's weight felt disproportionate to its size, and its contents were potentially life-changing or deadly. As they left the medical area, Isabella found herself scanning faces automatically, newly aware of the possibility of infiltration. The sanctuary had felt like safety moments ago, but Harper's warning had rekindled her paranoia. "You're worried," Mikhail observed as they made their way to a secure room with computers. It wasn't a question. His stride had unconsciously shortened to match hers. Another small accommodation she might not have noticed weeks ago. His shoulder occasionally brushed against hers, a subtle reminder of his protective presence. "Harper's warning bothers me," she admitted, keeping her voice low. The sounds of the warren would mask their conversation from human ears. But she was always conscious now of enhanced werewolf hearing, her brow furrowed with the concentration of working through implications. Trust nobody is either paranoid raving or he knows something we don't about who might have been compromised. Mikhail completed her thought, their minds following the same path. We'll be cautious. Only those we trust will see what's on that drive. The secure meeting room was small, but well equipped with technology that looked more advanced than Isabella expected in an underground sanctuary. The air felt noticeably different here, cooler, with the distinctive ozone smell of electronics running at full capacity. Multiple monitors cast a blue-tinted glow over the space, creating sharp shadows and highlighting the tension on every face. The hum of cooling fans created white noise, further isolating the room from the sanctuary beyond. Katerina joined them, moving rapidly despite her recent injury. Sophia arrived moments later, her quick, nervous energy contrasting with Katerina's contained intensity. The pink-haired tech specialist's fingers tapped an anxious rhythm against her thigh, and her eyes darted continually between the faces in the room, assessing and calculating. "I'll need to verify it's clean before connecting it to our network," Sophia explained, taking the drive from Isabella. Her fingers moved with practiced efficiency over the keyboard, the rhythmic clicking oddly soothing in the tense atmosphere. "If there's malware or tracking software, we'll know." She spoke rapidly, clearly in her element among the equipment. They watched in tense silence as Sophia ran the drive through a scanning process on a standalone computer. Isabella found herself holding her breath, unconsciously leaning forward. The screen reflected in their intent faces, bathing them all in an eerie blue glow. After several minutes, Sophia nodded, satisfaction evident in her quick smile. It's clean. No malware, no trackers. She connected it to the central system and opened the contents. Her eyes widened slightly as she scrolled, the light from the screen making her expression seem almost ghost-like. There's a lot here. Audio files, video, documents, financial records. The mechanical whir of the hard drive processing the data seemed to grow louder in the tense silence. Isabella leaned closer, scanning file names with a trained eye for relevant evidence. The organizational structure was familiar. Harper had used the same methodical filing system for case evidence during their joint investigations. Start with the audio files dated most recently. Sophia clicked on a file from 3 days earlier. Harper's voice filled the room, tense but controlled. The voice Isabella recognized from his courtroom testimony. Precise, methodical, leaving no room for misinterpretation. This is Detective James Harper, Atlanta Police Department. I'm recording this as insurance. If you're hearing this, I'm either dead or in hiding. What follows is evidence of corruption reaching the highest levels of Atlanta's government. For the next hour, they listened as Harper methodically laid out a conspiracy more extensive than even Isabella had imagined. The mayor, the chief prosecutor, and half a dozen high-ranking officials had been covering up Victor Aldrich's activities for years. Not just the recent murders, but dozens of crimes stretching back decades. The recorded confessions and wiretapped conversations filled the small room with a parade of incriminating voices. Some familiar to Isabella from city functions and courtroom proceedings. The casual way these influential figures discussed murders, cover-ups, and a host of other illegal activities sent chills down her spine. Isabella's training kicked in automatically as she listened. She mentally organized the evidence into categories, identified corroborating documents, and noted testimonial elements needing additional support. Her fingers itched for a legal pad to create an evidence map. The blue glow of the screens highlighted the intense concentration on every face, creating dramatic shadows that emphasized the gravity of what they were witnessing. He turned on them, Isabella murmured as the recordings continued, her analytical mind connecting the patterns. Victor was supposed to be their enforcer, intimidating political enemies, but he started killing for pleasure. They couldn't control him anymore, but were too compromised to turn him in. So, they used us to make him disappear instead, Mikhail continued, his voice hardening with cold fury. Isabella paused, considering the idea. Was it possible Rogers had wanted her to find Victor? That felt like it had too many uncontrollable variables for him to want to risk it. They might never know for certain. What concerned her more was that she didn't want them to try to force Mikhail to assume his uncle's role in his shadier dealings. Sophia opened a video file showing a clandestine meeting between Mayor Collier and Chief Prosecutor Rogers. They discussed how to contain the Aldrich situation and eliminate loose ends. A list that explicitly included both Harper and Isabella. Watching Rogers, her former mentor, calmly discuss her elimination sent a cold shock through Isabella's system, despite already knowing of his betrayal. The clinical detachment in his voice as he discussed potential accident scenarios made her stomach clench. This is... Isabella trailed off, momentarily lost for words, her professional vocabulary insufficient for the magnitude of what they were witnessing. The blue light from the screen cast harsh shadows across her face, highlighting the tension in her jaw. Enough to bring down the entire city government, Katerina finished, her expression grim but satisfied. Her hand had unconsciously moved to rest on the knife at her belt. Isabella sank into her chair, the wheels rolling slightly on the concrete floor with a soft squeak. The implications were spinning through her mind. "We need to be strategic about how we use this," she said, falling naturally into the role of lead prosecutor constructing a case. "If we release everything simultaneously, we risk exposing the supernatural elements. But if we're too selective, the complicit people could recover and spin the narrative. We need allies in the human world," Mikhail said thoughtfully, his voice taking on the measured clarity he used when outlining pack operations. "People who can verify and distribute the human aspects of this evidence without stumbling across the werewolf connections." Isabella snapped her head up, the sudden movement sending a sharp pain through her tense muscles. "Damon. He's been working as our inside informant and knows about the supernatural world. He can help us navigate this." Her tone brightened with renewed purpose, the same energy that had carried her through complex prosecutions. The familiar rush of strategic planning pushed back her exhaustion momentarily. "Can we get him here safely?" Katerina asked, her practical mind immediately focusing on logistics. Her fingers tapped a restless rhythm against her thigh, a subtle tell Isabella had come to recognize as Katerina processing tactical options. The soft tapping created a counterpoint to the hum of the computers. "If he's being watched, he and I have a secure communication channel," Isabella explained, the plan forming as she spoke. "I can reach him and set up a meeting." Mikhail nodded decisively, alpha authority evident in his posture. "Do it. In the meantime, Sophia will organize this evidence and separate human corruption from anything that might expose our existence. And we'll make sure to make multiple copies of the information that we decentralize. Damon has an additional set of information we will want to compile along with this. I'll make sure he brings a copy with him," Isabella offered. As the others dispersed to their tasks, Mikhail drew Isabella aside, his expression serious. The subtle shift in his stance, placing his body between her and the others, spoke of his protective instincts engaging again. In the doorway, the difference between the cool, tech-laden secure room and the warmer air of the main sanctuary created a momentary current that carried his scent to her, sandalwood and cedar with that underlying wild note. "You should rest now," he said gently, his voice pitched for her ears alone. "You've been running on adrenaline for too long." His eyes studied her face, likely noting the shadows beneath her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands that she'd been trying to hide. Isabella wanted to protest, but found herself swaying slightly on her feet, the cumulative exhaustion of days finally catching up with her body's limits. Her usual stubborn endurance was failing her. Even the dim sanctuary lights seemed too bright suddenly, sending small spikes of pain behind her eyes. "I suppose a few hours wouldn't hurt," she conceded reluctantly. Mikhail guided her back to their quarters, his hand warm and steadying at her back. When the door closed behind them this time, the world outside seemed to fade slightly, creating a bubble of temporary peace. The constant stress and vigilance could be set aside, if only briefly. The room felt different now that she'd accepted it as theirs. The space somehow more intimate, more sheltering. Someone had lit several candles while they were gone, filling the air with the subtle scent of beeswax and something herbal she couldn't identify. The flickering light softened the underground chamber, making it feel almost like a cozy cabin rather than a sanctuary beneath the city. Isabella sank onto the edge of the high wood-framed bed, finally allowing herself to feel the full weight of more than 24 hours' events. Her shoulders slumped as the professional posture she maintained for others fell away. The burgundy coverlet felt unexpectedly luxurious beneath her fingertips. Velvet or silk, worn to buttery softness by age and use. "I still can't quite believe all this is real sometimes," she admitted, gesturing vaguely to encompass the sanctuary, the werewolves, the entire situation. "A month ago, my biggest concern was getting a conviction in the Hendricks case." Mikhail sat beside her, his weight creating a comforting dip in the mattress. Unlike others, he made no effort to mask his supernatural nature with her now. His movements carried that fluid grace unique to predators. His attentiveness had a quality beyond human awareness. "Do you regret it? Being pulled into our world?" The candlelight caught the gold flecks in his eyes, making them glow softly. She considered the question seriously, sorting through the chaos of recent events to find her truth. She weighed the factors in her mind. The soft crackling of the candle wicks seemed to emphasize the stillness as she thought. "No," she said finally, with a certainty that surprised even her. "It's dangerous and completely insane, but I feel more alive than I ever did before. More connected?" "To me?" he asked, a rare vulnerability appearing in his voice, the alpha briefly setting aside his mantle of authority. In the soft light, the sharp angles of his face seemed softer, more human. Isabella turned to face him, reaching up to trace the strong line of his jaw with gentle fingers. Her touch was tentative, adjusting to the intimacy they'd developed so rapidly under pressure. The slight roughness of evening stubble scraped pleasantly against her fingertips. "To you, to the pack, to something larger than courtrooms and legal briefs." She laughed softly, deflecting emotion with humor, as was her habit. "Though I do miss regular sleep hours." Mikhail snorted skeptically. "I know you better than to believe you ever kept regular hours, Isabella Santos." His smile was tender as he leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers in a gesture she'd recognize as distinctly wolf-like in its intimacy. His skin felt fever-warm against hers. His scent enveloped her, creating a cocoon of safety and connection that made her eyes heavy with sudden overwhelming fatigue. "Sleep now. I'll wake you when Damon arrives." His voice had dropped to that deeper register that sent pleasant shivers along her spine, despite her exhaustion. Isabella allowed herself to be guided under the covers, her body relaxing into the unexpected comfort of the bed. The sheets carried that same sandalwood scent, surrounding her with Mikhail's presence, even as he moved away. The last thing she registered before sleep claimed her was Mikhail's lips, brushing her temple and his whispered words. "Rest, my heart. The battle continues tomorrow."